Does the runway matter? That's the question that we've been asking since probably season 2, and that's what today's video is all about. Welcome to Wild Spear, where today we'll be counting down 5 times that a queen's runway should have saved her from a bottom placement. When we talk about the runways, generally they're seen as sort of an afterthought or just really a formality sometimes. What I want to be doing today is I want to look at the queens who had a runway that was so good it should have saved them from a terrible performance in the Maxi Challenge. In some cases, a queen's performance in a Maxi Challenge was so bad no runway could have saved them. But these are the cases where today there were some other queens who did just as equally as poorly, and the runway should have been the deciding factor, saving these queens from the bottom. Did I miss any queens? Let me know in the comments. If we're talking about iconically bad performances, Snatch Game is the challenge that'll have the most of those. It comes around every season, and every season we have some amazing flops that take place. For All Stars 2, we had some amazing performances from Alaska, from Katya, even from Fifi O'Hara. We also had some iconic flops from Roxy, Tatiana, and Detox. I'd say that Roxy had probably the worst of these 3, but Tatiana and Detox were pretty even. This was the latex runway this week, where we had Detox come out in probably one of the best looks of the entire season. And while Tatiana had a great runway too, I think that Detox's runway was just so amazing it shouldn't have been a bottom 3, it should have just been a bottom 2. Detox came away with one of the best runways of the season that should have saved her Nancy Grace from a bottom position. Instead, we had Roxy, Tatiana, and Detox in the bottom 3 when we didn't really even need a bottom 3 to begin with. And while we're on the topic of Snatch Games, the Drag Race Down Under Season 1 Snatch Game had a full slew of poor performances. But it sure was a lot of fun. I really don't think it was as bad as the judges made it out to be. Obviously, Anita Wiglet did good, etc., did well. We also had some okay performances from Maxi Shield and from Electra Shock, so it really wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. At the end of the day, I think there were 3 equally bad performances, and those were from Coco Jumbo, who did Lizzo. We also had Karen from Finance, who did Dolly Parton, and then we had Art Simone, who did Bindi Irwin. These 3 all struggled in the challenge, but when it came to the runway, that should have been the deciding factor. This was the sea-sickening runway, and we had an amazing look from Art Simone where she came out as sort of a swamp witch style look. Meanwhile, the looks from Karen and from Coco just weren't in comparison to what Art had given us. This was where the judges wanted to have the shock of sending somebody like Art Simone home so early in the season, only to bring her back a couple of episodes later, but still, that was the goal of what the producers wanted to have here. But in a fair world, when the runway was a deciding factor, Art would have been saved here, and we likely would have lost Coco or Karen, probably Karen here on episode 2. And Karen was a big name as well, so that would have had the same, maybe a little bit less, but still a big shock from the queen that won the first episode, going home second. Not sure why we went the way that we did, but here we are. And while we're on the topic of big names eliminated early, we can talk about Joe Black from UK Series 2. She was a huge name in the UK drag scene when she was cast on the second series of Drag Race UK. She was unceremoniously eliminated in the first episode when the judges weren't feeling her 2 premiere looks, even though they probably weren't the worst of the week. This was a runway challenge, so I'm not going to be talking about this particular challenge. I'll be talking about when she returned after the COVID break. If you'll recall, UK Series 2 had a pause because COVID took place, and when they returned, Veronica Green was not able to continue because she had COVID at the time. For this reason, the queens voted on which eliminated queen should replace her and return to the competition, and Joe Black was the winner. This was the UK Hun Ruruvision Challenge, where the queens formed girl groups and performed their own versions of UK Hun. We obviously had the amazing performance from the United King dolls, and in the other group we had Sister Sister, Ellie Diamond, Tia Coffee, and Joe Black. This other group, known as Banana Drama, if you look at the four queens, I think the only one that had a great performance and a great verse was Sister Sister. Go back and listen to her verse from this challenge. I think it's one of the most underrated in Drag Race verse history, if that exists. So I'm going to leave it down to these bottom three of Tia Coffee, Joe Black, and Ellie Diamond. The queen that had the best runway this week, which was the Day at the Beach runway, was Joe Black. She always thought about drag and thought about runways in a different way that not a lot of queens really thought about, and for this, Joe Black was in a windswept runway where she was getting chips all over her, she was getting ice cream all over her, and her makeup, her look was completely windblown. Think of it as a precursor to what we saw from Nymphia Wind with her amazing ball look. The judges were really preoccupied by her performance look, which was that famous H&M jacket, but look at this group, none of them go together, especially when the queen who won the premiere challenge for that series wore an ASOS jacket. So, hey, they just had something out for Joe Black, but in a fair world, this runway would have saved her from the bottom two. Moving back to the US series of Drag Race, one of the most famously rigged challenges in all of Drag Race was on season 11 with the Dragra Cadabra challenge. For this challenge, the queens had to perform in magic groups and then had a runway that was caftan realness. This was where we had the amazing performance from Sugarcane, Nina West, and Brooklyn Heights, and then the obviously bottom-worthy performance from the rest of the queens. This was known as the assassination of Sugarcane because they decided it was her time to go, even though she very well could have won this challenge. Why I'm including this here is this was the Caftan Realness episode, where the queens were inspired by Honey Mahogany to wear caftans. Not a great runway, because I don't really like caftans, but there was one queen who didn't really even put on a caftan, and that was Akira C. Davenport. Even though she was my favorite queen of the season, this was a butterfly outfit. It was not a caftan, despite what she said on the runway. For that reason, she should have been put into the bottom two with Miss Vanjie and saved Sugarcane no matter how horrible her caftan looks were. It was still a caftan, and with her performance in the main challenge, she didn't deserve to be in that bottom two, especially when one of the queens did not follow the runway. You're probably noticing a trend with these last three queens because they were really just in the bottom despite having great runways because production wanted to have a moment with them in the bottom or wanted to get rid of them. That's the case for our next two queens. These were queens who had powerful runways, and the judges wanted to see them lip sync in these runways, even though they were some of the best of the week. For Season 12's political challenge, we had the drag debate with Jada Essence Hall's famous performance. We also had great performances from Crystal Method and Heidi N Closet, and then we had some okay performances from the rest of the queens. I really will defend Jackie Cox's performance till the day that I die because she was a Canadian pretending to be American, and she managed to have jokes every single time she was called on. Widow Von Du as well, even though she was playing sort of the overly political, angry person, she was able to get jokes in there as well. The two queens that struggled the most in this challenge were Gigi Good, who played a robot for the second time that season, and the Pie one, who we don't have to talk about too much, but she didn't have a very memorable performance either. So for these four queens, it should have come down to the runway. For the runway, this was the Stars and Stripes runway, and we got a lot of different interpretations here. We got some statement runways from Jackie Cox and Widow Von Du. We also got some other interesting interpretations. The only queen who did not fit the category was Gigi Goode. She went with a Revolutionary War style runway that could have fit the category if her coat wasn't red, and Paul Revere would not have ran across Massachusetts saying the red coats are coming. For her to wear a red coat on the Stars and Stripes runway, bottom 2, straight to jail. The queen, though, that I would have saved from the bottom because of her runway, I know Widow had a great runway too, but Jackie Cox's runway was really a statement runway that had never been done on Drag Race before. They put her in the bottom 2 simply because they wanted to see her lip sync in that look to a song like Firework by Katy Perry, some big patriotic moment. We got the great confessional from Jackie while the lip sync was happening, but at the end of the day, when she wasn't the worst in the challenge and her runway was the best of the week, it certainly should have saved her from the bottom 2. But this is still one of my favorite lip syncs of the entire series, so I'm glad that we got it. I'm sad that Widow was sent home because of it, but it was a great moment for Drag Race. And those are 5 times that queens should have been saved from lip syncing because of their runways. Let me know in the comments who I missed on this list, and stay tuned for more fun stuff here on Wild Spear.